What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders 2. Lots of hunter mains out there have been asking me about the new bow, and I said I was going to do the math on it, and that time has finally come. Now we'll go through all the numbers with the new bow. Of course, I'm referring to the coral bow with splash arrows. Some of you right at the start will have found explosive arrows. It's actually the exact same thing. It was just properly named now to splash arrows. So these two are the exact same shot as far as the arrow type itself. Now, before we get into all the deets, the TLDR would be Earth Guardian still king. If your main concern is single target damage, the Earth Guardian's bow is still going to rule the roost for you. So no need to switch up from the Earth Guardians unless you are just looking for a slightly different experience. Now let's hop right on in and take a look at the Splash Arrows 3. This is the fastest attack rate it'll go with. It's 4 shots per second. Now, it's got a super cool little splash explosion animation. You see that little water splash there. Now this is a visual animation only. The bow does not drench. All of the explosion animations, of course, are specific per weapon type. And then, of course, it comes in 3 different flavors. We got the Splash Arrows 1, the Splash Arrows 2, and then the Splash Arrows 3. The only difference between those is going to be the number of shots fired per second. And they all have the really close to the exact same damage scaler. So, you know, of course, we all go after the 4 per second for various things that proc, making sure that we're going to get the maximum amount of procs off with something like, say, charged shot. However, the scaling on these bows is very, very comparable no matter which one you use. And they all have the exact same scaling as the Gothic longbow. In fact, for all intents and purposes, it is the exact same bow. So, exact same numbers. It appears to be the same exact explosion radius. Everything looks to be very much the exact same as that Gothic longbow. Now, the Gothic longbow, of course, just like the Splash Arrows, is a AoE lane clear. So it's not as much in single target damage, but you do have the ability to hit multiple enemies. So if I shoot at that dummy in the middle, we see that the outside dummies are getting hit as well. So you get that little bit of AoE explosion. And to pay for that AoE and multi-target hitting, of course, it doesn't hit quite as hard. Now, when you dive into the math and take a look at them, you are going to get 3.54 hero DPS per point of hero damage that you have. So this is exactly the same, once again, as that Gothic longbow, 3.54. Now, if you take this a little bit further, you will see that one is better than the other, and they're kind of in a weird ranking. They would go something like this. So if you take it over to the 1000th category, then the Splash Arrows 1 at 2 shots per second would technically be the highest amount of damage. But, of course, it's a slower fire rate, so if you're trying to proc a mod or a shard, you're not going to get as many chances in. This is going to give you 3.548 hero DPS per point of hero damage spent. Now, that's the raw base damage, not calculating any crits in. Crits, of course, are percentage-based, so it's no need to factor them at all when comparing the bows. Then we go over to the Splash Arrows 3, 3.544, so slightly less than the Splash Arrows 1. And bringing up the rear is going to be the Splash Arrows 2 at 3.543. So I personally would still use the 4 per second bow, but if you're having terrible luck with them, don't feel bad about one of the other bows. They're going to work out just fine for you as far as your overall DPS effectiveness. So basically, we got 2 categories of bows, and a few bows would rule the roost in those categories. First off would be the single target category. The single target category, the Earth Guardians is king. It's at 3.76 DPS per point of hero damage. The Bow of the Phoenix does really, really well. Also, it's at 3.744. So barely less than the Earth Guardian, but definitely less. And then in between, you've got the regular ground drop single, not the Bling King variant, but the regular drop off the ground. That particular bow is going to be at 3.75, so slightly less as well, and right there with the Bow of the Phoenix. As far as the lane clearing bows, we've got the Bling King bow, which is 3.75, and then we've got the Gothic Longbow, and we've got the Coral Bow, which are both at the 3.544 DPS per point of hero damage. Now, slightly higher, of course, is that Bling King bow. It's at 3.75 DPS per point of hero damage. However, you lose that mod slot. So you get the same AoE burst with slightly harder single target damage, but you lose a mod slot, and additionally, you lose one of the strongest shards in the game for a hero DPS or a hero damage bow user, and that, of course, is Charged Shot. So I personally don't ever use Bling King anymore. If I want an AoE lane clearer, I've used the Gothic Longbow. As you see, this one I've actually stripped all the mods off of it because I just don't use it that much anymore, and I prefer just to use Earth Guardians all the time now for all situations. And then even for pack clearing, of course, I'm not doing any splash damage, but I do have other shards and mods that are going to help with that, like Bouncing Phoenix, and I have the ability to kill a single individual target a little bit faster. So the right answer with bows is really just use whatever you want, y'all. If you look at the top 10 bows list, the difference between the very best and the absolute worst on the top 10 list is just really, really small. Like the absolute worst would be 3.168 DPS per point of hero damage, and the absolute best would be 0.76. So there is a difference between number 1 and number 10, but the difference is small throughout when you look at number 9, number 8, number 7. So use the bow that you like the most. Now that will do it for now. Thanks an absolute ton for watching, and I will see you next time around. Take it easy.